A person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. So, he loses touch with reality and lives in a world of illusions. By thoughts, I mean specifically chatter in the skull, perpetual and compulsive repetition of words, of reckoning and calculating. I'm not saying that thinking is bad. Like everything else, is useful in moderation. A good servant, but a bad master. And all so-called civilized peoples have increasingly become crazy and self-destructive because through excessive thinking they have lost touch with reality. That's to say, we confuse science with the real world.
How's your week?
Great. I'm trying to think. I feel like...
You told me about the book.
Yeah. Told you about the book idea. Talked to the author a few times. I had family in town. Mm-hmm. Sebastian had a play, or musical. I always say play, and he's like, it's a musical, mommy. Family flew into town to watch it. Mm. It was good, yeah. It's definitely...
That's nice of the fam.
It was nice of the fam. It was good vibes, good energy that they came in to see that. But yeah. How about your weekend? Were you able to, be a kid?
Oh, yeah. I laughed so much over the last week.
Oh, it's so important, laughter.
I honestly nonstop laughed. I laughed, I loved, I met new people. It was good. It was a full circle week.
It's so important. You were so in the moment, and then...
Yeah. And that, I knew going into it, it was, regardless of what unraveled while I was there, it was an opportunity to just be open. And I was, and it was great. It was great.
And that's why I asked you about the word expectation, meaning, and I know you and your mentality. When you plan a trip, it's book the flight, get on the plane, and just get off the plane, and you have a place to land, and then you just let it go. And so I guess people, they either overbook or over plan, or that didn't go according to plan, so the whole day's ruined. It's just like, no, it's all meant to be the way it's meant to be. Mm-hmm. And as you said, when you probably reached out to enough people knowing you were coming, and then there's other people there that maybe you didn't reach out to, and then they're like, oh, you're in town, let's get together for whatever, a walk or drink or something. And so that's the plan spontaneity that I like, is be spontaneous with a framework.
We had good times. We definitely tore it up a little bit.
So important.
Yeah. To
make those reconnects. And I think when you are constantly in the same routine, there's nothing wrong with that, the same every day, it's monotonous, and maybe you notice less around you. You notice less about patterns that around you. You notice less about the environment. You're just sort of stuck in the rigmarole of things. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with, actually, you can still be in routine and enjoy life. I'm not saying that travel has to do that for people. For me, it just helps me get out of my head, get out of my element, where you can just be a kid again and not worry about the whole family dynamic. And then I would say on the other side of that is how independent my kids have become, because they're seeing that I also have a life outside of being a mom and being around and doing all the things. It's giving them the opportunity to figure it out. Mm-hmm. That's the excuse that I'll use anyway. And as you said, so for me, I love meeting new people and hearing people's stories and walks of life, and seeing new things, tasting new food, hearing different music. And when you see other people and where they live in their environments, it's eye-opening how various people can live and operate. It just makes life that more interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one of the most beautiful things about travel is when you're breaking the rhythm of what your day-to-day looks like. Mm-hmm. People are hitting you from new angles, right? And when they hit you from new angles, you're experiencing new aspects of yourself that might have been dormant right? And I think that's one of the fun things about it. This wasn't necessarily the most profound trip because I was living there for 2.5 years. But what was fresh about it is, and just my life in general, I would say, is there's zero such thing as cohort anymore. All ages, all genders, there's a lot of them out there. You really got a little dose of everything. And I think one thing that's definitely changed within me is I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore. I'm not trying to impress anybody. And I think that paradigm shift that growth has translated into a really interesting dynamic when I'm meeting people. It's so funny, you'll sit with someone who's C-suite, or someone who's quote-unquote famous, or you'll sit with somebody who has everything that the world will say is like a big deal. But the second you prove to them that you're not someone who goes and chases anything, you'll notice how they begin pursuing you, right? So certain conversations, they'll be telling you their whole life story about all their achievements, all their accomplishments. And that goes back to something we talk about on the podcast, right? It goes back to they're very good at everything they set their mind to and their heart to, but they don't even understand what they're pursuing, right? They don't know what they're pursuing. Here I am, like in these, networking environments, call them, just telling them that they're loved, right? And talking about universal laws. And I think it makes things so funny because you can almost pierce through all the bullshit. Yeah. And I'm in a place where I'm just not interested in anything else. I think it's time for people to drop the facade, right? And stop chasing their own tails, because a lot of us don't know what we actually want. And so when going back to travel, a lot of people say, I want to go to Southeast Asia to go find myself, or I'm going to go on a shamanistic journey in South America and take ayahuasca, and then I'll really orient myself. But there's a really good quote. I don't know the guy's name, but he says, home is the place where attempt to escape ceases. I think that's the perfect explanation, right? That can be taken with you anywhere. And when people travel to get something out of life, that's missing the point. Like you said, and fully aligned with what you said, when you travel to open up to bring light to different qualities of yourself in the world and new perspectives so that you can see the full image for what it is, that's part of the experience. But I guess my confusing response to you was just, it was equally showing me that it did nothing for me, while it showed me that in 1,000 new ways.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I like what you said earlier. It's when you're traveling, you choose to travel, you are stepping outside of your everyday routine and the comfort zone of knowing what's next in the plan. And then if there are things that happen along the way, along that journey of your trip, you do actually get a chance to get to know yourself a little bit more and see what you're capable of. And somebody who's at the airport who's not very nice to you, and they're you just want to say you have this position behind this desk, and you're now not letting me on the flight because you think you have this jurisdiction, and like how your blood cells are boiled, like, okay, how do I respond to this so I actually do get on the flight? There's just it's stepping outside that comfort zone and putting yourself in positions of having to navigate people who aren't in your mindset. So you'll have your issues, your challenges, but that's all opportunity to work on yourself in so many different ways. And you should be able to find yourself when you get up in the morning and make a cup of coffee. Like, I get it. Like, yes, it's so important to leave and get out of the element, but at the same time, every day we should be finding ourselves, even in the routines that we have. So there are statistics that prove that the people who go on holiday, it's like all they keep thinking is, I have a week off and I can't wait to go. And then a couple days before, they're packing, they're getting super excited, stressful, whatever. And then they get back and then they go down this depression, and they're like, but now I need another vacation in order to, because they think I have to go now back to this reality, this life that I may or may not be happy with. So it's appreciating the moment, appreciating the time away, and then, but also when you come home, it's like home is where you are, right? Home is what you create within you, which I agree with that sentiment when you said that earlier. So it's that journey of, who are you and who do you want to be? That's home, and that's love. So wherever you are in the world, home or not, physically home, in your home base or not, it's that feeling.
Yeah, we're in this shit. When you bring up the vacation, shift in consciousness, it's like season, same thing as seasonal depression.
Yeah.
Same thing as living for the weekends. When you said that, there's, I just look at that sentiment and I see so much to unpack. Fundamentally, the simplest way to recognize that, if I was to come up with something out of thin air, would be that majority of your life is spent doing things that don't align with who you are. And the only person who would agree to something like that has not recognized that they have the control of their own life. You look out in the world and you expect it to tell you how to live your life. And that shift hasn't happened yet. You haven't recognized that you are in control. And that programming can be so hardwired sometimes that people don't realize it throughout their entire lifetime. And so I guess it's never going to be redundant to keep talking about the fact that it's like it's in your own control to make sure that the way your life pours out in this material world, it belongs to you. It's something that you are consciously controlling. And everything that doesn't align with that is literally just a limitation that you put on yourself because you think that someone said this, so that's the way the world has to be. And it's completely not like that. There's a Jung quote, I'm talking about like this reflection, right, between your inner world and your outer world, and thinking the outer world is truth. He says those who look in the outer world are dreamers, and those who look inside their heart awaken. And I think that's the truth. But if you keep living a life for the weekends, right? You're genuinely not following your heart. You feel so good on the weekends because you're finally letting yourself release. And that's your heart telling you that, like, you've just been imprisoning me. You've been hurting me. You've been blocking me. And for 5 out of 7 days of the week, you are not letting me breathe. And that is so sad. That is so sad. And don't only think about how that limits you as who you are. Everybody you come into contact with for those 5 days, you're giving them the same impression. You're making them think equally that the world works in this imprisoning way. And it's a harsh thing to do for the world. No wonder we're so competitive. No wonder we think the world is so scarce, because we're living in a limited world. It is so liberating to just say, like, I am in control, right? I am in control. And what I know is my truth definitely takes the reins over anything anyone tells me about life, because I don't even know for sure that anything exists outside of my brain. I don't even know for sure. So if you're taking what other people say to you as truth, you haven't asked the most fundamental questions of, what if this is a world where it's only in my head, right? And the more you go inward, you'll realize that it is a beautiful oneness with all, right, equally. But I think the sentiment of taking the world as someone tells you it is a deep.
It should be against the law.
Well, people say, it's unrealistic, right? Maybe religion or spirituality, it's like, it's non-pragmatic, it's not realistic, before you actually explore it, right? what is illogical is actually not asking the most fundamental questions, right? Because otherwise, you're living for the weekends and doing something you hate, and never saying, what is this all about?
Yeah.
That is delusional. That, to me, is way more delusional than talking about spirituality.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
So sorry for raining there, but I just, it makes me sad when people live for the vacation once a year.
Yeah.
If that.
No, it's creating what you, to your point, it's creating what you want for yourself and living each day in your own creation. You are the creator. You hold the paintbrush. What did I write the other day on Instagram? You hold the paintbrush to creating that piece of art that you want to create. So let it go, let it flow. And I agree with you. I mean, I didn't feel that way at your age. I feel that way much more now. But I always felt like, why does it have to be like this? Why can't I go and play tennis on a Wednesday afternoon because I have a job, a 9 to 5? No, fuck that. Like, I want to play tennis and I'll take an hour off. Like, you just plug in what you want to plug in on a daily basis. That makes you align yourself with things you love to do and things you want to do, instead of getting into this this victim mindset of, oh, I can only do that this coming Friday because, as you said, like, the weekend starts. Why doesn't it have to be a weekend? Why does it be a weekday? It's just every day. It's just life. So you just experience what you want to experience, and you have the choice to create exactly what you want for yourself every day. And if you feel drawn to that kind of the lifestyle you want to do, the 9 to 5, then go for it. As long as you're happy and you love what you're doing, then do it. I have a friend coming to visit the second week of March. And she's like, well, I know it's not going to be the weekend. I was like, it doesn't matter. We're just going to have fun. We'll do whatever we want, whatever you like. You make your little list to do in the DC area, and my kids will be at school. Like, we'll just whatever. Like, the day is the day. It'll, if we stay out late, I just wake up early the next day. I'm okay with that. So I said I'd rather you be here spending time with me than it not be a weekend because you can't come on the weekend. Just come. Yeah.
I agree with that. Those days are actually rather revelatory of who you are, right? When you go out and your level of enjoyment and your experience isn't predicated on the surrounding energy, right? You're bringing that to the world. That's Leela, that's divine play, because what you're doing is ultimately being the complete creator of your experience. Some of my favorite moments, honestly, are like mano-a-mano with one of my buds. And like, we're just at some random bar talking with, certain events come to you. I think it's almost like an isolated environment in some sort of experiment where you can really see how things can take off from the inside of you. So that'll be a good trip. And I agree with your response there. Like, why not? Like, I'm in prison because it's Monday?
Right.
Really?
Okay. You put yourself in prison.
Sure.
And
it really is these cycles that we take in our own brain. I mean,
one of my deals I made with myself before we moved here was the importance of doing something every month. That's whether it's a long weekend with the girlfriends, whatever it was, like traveling. And I pretty much adhered to that. Maybe it wasn't every month, it was every other, but I was doing something to make sure I was getting out and about. And it's so easy to travel here. It's so easy to travel in Asia, but that was my goal. Was I just knew for me that was nourishing. That was what brought happiness and excitement for me and joy. So yeah, I was on the way here. I was walking. I'm like, okay, what do I have coming up? I'm super looking forward to. So I was some fun things planned, and realizing that's it. Just I was glowing inside thinking about upcoming trips and travel. So it's so important to not, as you said, use the excuses in your mind as to why you can't. Find a way.
I think that's important, right? This, having an impending thing to look forward to keeps people alive, right? This is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. The man who has things planned after the Holocaust, right? He's the one who makes it through. He's the one who survives, right? But then there's the positive end of that. It's like, I'm going to be in Tokyo next year, so I have something to look forward to, and that gives me life force. But I think that's honestly still a little bit of a dependence, right? And it's a little bit of a limitation, because people tell us what Tokyo looks like. People tell us what the other side looks like. You know, these are actually limitations, fundamentally. And the human brain is, I shouldn't say the brain, the mind is unbounded. It's unbounded. And when we think, you know, what we expect is putting us on the wheel of time. What we expect is showing us the cycles that aren't ending, right? And in transcendentalism, we realize that there are things that never end, but then there's a larger evolution that's taking place, right? And you can be unencumbered by the cycles. You can, you know, we are the only things putting limitations on our brain. Like, we're born into a world that tells you this is what your lifeline's going to look like, because we look at the memories and we look at what other people have done. We look back at history. But if you open yourself up to the potentiality of the infinite, you realize that the answers that you seek can be found, and much more, right? And a lot of people don't believe that, but you have created the limitation, and you have also the capacity to transcend every limitation. And that's the beauty. That's this like eternal discovery, because everything is infinite.
Right.
And so there's much more than the best trip that's ever been told. There's much more than the championship that's been told, that world as well. And these things are very based. They're very physical. They're very material, right? And the beauty in this world is you're doing that transcendence amongst everybody else. So you can interact and contribute to somebody else's, and they can contribute to yours. And I'm not saying don't enjoy this life and this thing, but what I am saying is don't create your own demise, right? Don't put that cap on it. Challenge yourself to see how many of the limitations that are out there you can avoid. The more you're open to the potentiality of the infinite, the more it speaks to you. It doesn't want to talk to you if you're not interested.
Yeah, that's true. I like that. And the idea of when there is a limitation, whether it's somebody else saying something, I think my mind goes to, well, you have the capacity and the creativity to think outside that limitation and transcend it and dissect it, or whatever you want to do to it, demolish it, blow it up. If you allow the limitation, then you're just following in that path of just, oh, a block. There's a block there. That's going to limit me. When really, and I guess Seb is like this, where would that be almost like not taking no for an answer, which can be challenging in its own way, but it's so good for him to think that way and to think outside the box and to create his own rules. Like the boy who does create his own rules for games that he plays, and mainly because he doesn't want to lose, he wants to win, but he's still allowing to be creative, but not taking no for an answer in that sense of. And I guess I would say at some level he gets that from, for better or for worse. I'm not always good about taking no for an answer, because no shouldn't be the answer. It's just, well, how do we make it into a yes, or a possibility, or an opportunity? And you know, if you think about the perspective of, you know, going to Japan next year, from now to then, you don't just say, oh, I'll be happier once I go to Japan. Right.
That's the limitation.
That's the
cycle.
limitation. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I was just going to dumb it down for myself, but yes, the limitation is like, I'll be happier once. No, be happy now.
Mm-hmm.
The process, the journey. If you base everything about just getting to Japan, that's the imprisonment. That's the imprisonment.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you're just like, wait, I fucking hate Japan. By the way, I fucking love Japan. Are you really going? Or you just meant that? That was just an example.
I don't know.
All right, I'm going with you.
Yeah.
I love Japan, but that's the thing. Is like, well, no, it's still the outcome of the journey and the process of going inward, doing the work, healing healing is constant. Everything is constant. So it's ongoing.
The healing thing, I think, is also a limitation.
Mm-hmm.
Be healed.
Yeah.
We perpetuate our own misery so much, and it's easy for me to say, but I've been through my shit, okay? If you want to talk to me one-off and ask me about my shit, this would be stuff that, with that attitude, I would still be going through.
Right. With what attitude?
We can't be healing for our entire life. We can't. We can't, because that's going to keep us based.
No, you can definitely be healed.
And you can disagree. I'd love to go back and forth on this. Like, give me an example of
I don't think I have my...
why that has to exist forever.
Oh my gosh, I just brought... This is a different book that I brought with me. Brianna Weist.
Pivot year.
Yep, this is the pivot year. Well, according to her. And she has like every day something. And I ran into the woman who teaches yoga. The woman who's in our building teaches yoga with her partner, and I had this. We were both downstairs working in the lobby, and we both had this out yesterday. And I said, I've been reading it since day one, and I was like, I typically just open it up for a random day, and she said that's what she's been doing. We're opening up for a random day because these are numbered, and I went to 200. Today was $2.99, and it really resonated. But I did buy her other book, something of. No, I can't remember. But it's this. The book is called "This Is How You Heal." So for people who maybe want to heal or thinking about healing, I hear you. But it's almost like this is how you heal, and then you're like, then it's time to really like not dwell, not go down the rabbit holes. You're healed, and now it's time to move forward and to not. She's her advice is to, or her, whether it's not advice, her perspective is, you heal from the shit.
Yeah. Well, think
and you
about,
grow from that.
Think about, like, the teach a man to fish is the biggest thing, right? Religious or not, the archetype of a Christ, right? The archetype of a Christ is saying that you have all the powers I have, right? You have all the powers I have. If we're talking about I have the answers and you have to continue listening to me in order to heal, that is capitalism. That is commerce. That is a transaction that keeps people dependent on you. And it's another limitation that the people who listen will continue to perpetuate on that wave. Fundamentally, the only thing that's justice that one can do is help people awaken from the inside, that everything is pouring out from the inside of them. And the best ways to do that, maybe not even language, but it's patterns, right? And when you look at the patterns of the way things work, you can start to detach from this dream, right?
Absolutely.
The best way to really recognize your inner power is that incubation we always talk about, because you're out of the maze, you're out of the illusion, you're out of the confusion of, am I supposed to be doing what everybody else is doing? Is this... Think about it. People who are transcendent are not engaging into things that are non-transcendent, right? They are not thinking in the same way the wave works, because we are all individuals. When you're talking to a bunch of copies, you're not going to put yourself into the wavelength, into the vibration and the resonance of those who are actually thinking for themselves. We're lucky when those people come back and they educate us and inform us and say, you're looking the wrong direction. But think about this, we were talking about how the consciousness shift is the information of this time. Out of all the people in the world, you bump into somebody who's reading the same book. That is another wave, but that's a beautiful wave if you look at it, because that creates the opportunity for a shift to come in, but it's a big question of like, what is that shift? And she can have 299 plus pages around what that shift looks like. But I think the better opportunity is that, the general paradigm is that a shift is taking place. What could that look like for you that would better serve you and make you feel more connected? And if there is this shift going on throughout society, then there is something bigger that you haven't tapped into to recognize. So develop a relationship with that thing that might be bigger and all-encompassing, simultaneously while you figure out who you are. And I think that these are the patterns, right? These are the waves, right? This is man is the man and woman, human is the drop in the ocean, but not the ocean, right? Start to grapple with these things. Start to think about them and really go inward. And Yeah, there's so much noise, and it really could be simple.
So the fun thing about this person that I ran into, and we had the same book, that's definitely, I guess, in a sense, there's a connection there. There's a sense of belonging. There's a sense of connection. There's a sense of, for me. And also, when you read one of the passages, for instance, this is thought-provoking messages, right? So when I read it today, her messages resonate, and the person who I ran into that has this, we definitely have had discussions around like I read and read Rick Rubin because of her. And so she said the quote, one of the quotes from Rick Rubin's book at the end of yoga, and I was like, where did that come from? And she said Rick Rubin's book, and now I have it and I read it, and I've had it with me at times. And then so from that moment we've exchanged different people that we listen podcasts and books. And then we both had said, do you read Brianna West? Like this book just came out. This is just the start of this year. But I love the idea of her book because this is stuff that I do actually for myself. Like I write reflections every day or every other day, and I envision another book of something like this where people maybe don't want to read a full book or they don't want to listen to it, so you just open up to a page, right, and you follow along. And it's,
to be clear, the universe comes to you in the way that you conceive it to communicate with you, right? So if the confines of your belief of how the world operates are, I get wisdom, I get inspiration from books, from people I interact with, that's going to be the way it comes to you. And these can be the harbinger to really help you understand how powerful you are, right? And I think it's beautiful. Like we're actively here, enjoying the fruits of this world, whether it's a book, a movie, a tree outside, right? We are here enjoying that. That's powerful, right? But how far can we go? How far can we go in order to actually tap into new information? What if I haven't been looking everywhere, right? Maybe I haven't, what if things exist within inside of you, right? What if? And don't you want to know what that is? Don't you want to know what that looks like? Because by saying this vacation will be the best thing of my life, it will. By allowing other people to tell you this is what life is about, this religion, this creed, this doctrine is all about, you missed your one chance. You missed your one chance to create. And so I totally, books are really what bounced me into like standing on 2 feet with 10 toes down, right? That I'm grateful for. I totally agree with it. But I think the best books are the ones that teach the man to fish. The best books are the Christ consciousness of hey, I am you. You can do it. You're capable of everything I'm doing. And I'm saying this without even having read this book, which might be saying the exact same thing I'm saying. So don't get me wrong. But just from a philosophical perspective, watching people all read the same book, it's we're all going to be thinking the same way, and all of our philosophies are going to be the exact same. And then everyone's going to say this is reality, and it's no.
No, right.
So
no, and obviously there's no right or wrong. There's I appreciate that perspective.
Yeah.
And I would say, similar to you, I don't I will read something or listen to a podcast or whatever, or listen to meditation by Sam Harris, or none of those things. And I still have, I know for me, I still have these reflections. That's just who I am. It's what I do. It's my own these ideas and thoughts come for me, and I will write them out. And then I will read the people that I do love to read for sure. And it's amazing how aligned, without even reading what they've written, how aligned I am with other people. So, and even though it's my own perspective, my own take on it, but the sentiment is there, the core essence of what I'm writing about. So we all have our own ways of writing about it, and my way is mine. And if I'm able to write something that help somebody, like when I read something, I'm like, it's like I just feel like, yes, that's how I would have said it, but yet I didn't say it like that. So it's, I guess you feel, okay, someone else is walking in the shoes that I've walked in, or right. So you feel a sense of acceptance or belonging, or, you know, but yet at the same time, I love being unique. I am unique. I want to be unique. I want to be myself. I want to be super authentic, and I am every day. So, but then there's still this, if we're all one, then there's still going to be, I guess, those connecting the dots and the commonalities, especially when I'm reading things that are, you know, along my lines of my mindset.
I mean, Rick Rubin talks about this too when he's working with musicians, right? Mm-hmm. He'll say, don't create what you think the world wants.
That's right.
Because they'll know that you're just engaging in commerce, and they'll receive that. Whether they know or not, it doesn't matter. But if you create something for you that you love from your heart, people know. People know this is something of the heart. There are certain things you see in life where the heart exists in it, and you have to look twice because you say, now I understand. This is completely unique, and this came from the inside out.
It's so powerful to allow someone just to be exactly who they want to be and who they, whatever. And even if they don't know in that moment, if you don't know, as long as you discover who you are, that's the beauty, that's the power of it.
Yeah.
Like taking, and that you could go use the word limitation, but not allowing somebody to live in their power of authentic soul is stripping them away from everything, and it's just like, it just feels constricting, that feels limiting. And the people who are allowed to be who they want to be, allowed, whatever the word is, you know, just being who they are, there's so much value in that, and it's just precious.
Yeah.
And it's so important. It's
the only thing we want. So many people don't know, you know?
And that's okay. It's super okay.
Yeah.
That's the discovery.
It's actually not okay. To be honest, it's not okay.
I think it is.
Stop saying it's okay.
No, it's okay in the moment when you just like, I don't want, meaning like have compassion and grace for yourself to not know.
Sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's
for sure.
But it's not okay to dwell in that.
But if like this information comes to you, right? Maybe not us, like who are we? But like if something enters your field that makes you say, I don't even know what I want, and you don't do anything about it,
right,
then you've just given up.
Meaning if someone's like, I'm like, tell me more, what was your journey like, that kind of like curiosity, and then they're like, I'm lost, and I still say, well, lost is still being somewhere, so don't put yourself in that category of feeling like it's okay to, and get, in fact, I still remember you saying this, and I watched something on Instagram, just a quick little thing, actually get lost, get the fuck lost, walk down the street, do not take the same route, get lost in that world, in your mind, and go for it. And then be open to whatever's coming for you. But meaning, yes, I hear you. Yeah, absolutely. When people are sort of playing that role of like, yeah, I'm going to just stay in this path of not making changes and not
that's
realizing
the choice.
It. That's super choice.
That's the choice, right? But that's probably the biggest choice. Like when life-changing information crosses your field and you decide to reject it, then you've given up control of your life.
Yeah.
Fundamentally.
You're not the pilot of your plane.
Right. But this is the red pill, blue pill.
Mm-hmm.
And anything, like everything will be that. It's like an offering for you to go on the change the life path, for you to go onto a lifeline that better aligns with you. All of the information is, and we keep closing it off. It's like a scale, right? It's like a gradient of here's more and here's more and here's more. But if you're not taking the olive branch,
yes,
then you're going to be on canola oil. You're going to be on, like, I don't know how to describe it.
I get that. No, that's not the oil you want to be. So what I want to add, and I know, this is just because this is me, thinking about people that are listening or going along their journey, and when I talked about healing earlier, when you decide to heal, you decide to do the work of going inward. And this is, again, for me, and looking within and, you know, why aren't I healed and why am I not healing, or what is it that makes me feel unhealed, like those kinds of questions. And for me, they're if you want to use the word, some triggers, things that come up, but the triggers are patterns, which being aware of the patterns of breaking those paradigms of beliefs, of that narrative in your mind that's maybe it's actually not the truth. The truth in the moment, but perhaps not the overall truth. So yes, I did say healing is continuous, but meaning healing doesn't have to be this like, once I'm healed I can move forward. I believe you can. I know that I'm doing some healing work myself, but I'm also, the momentum forward is that for me as well. It's also recognizing the triggers or the patterns that I have in order to move past things or unblock things that that didn't make me feel like my needs are being met or my essentials are being met. So what I would say is, my point is that everyone has their own way of doing that kind of work, and this is what the work that helps me. And I find Brianna very relatable, and she went through massive bouts of depression and anxiety. She's probably in her 30s, and so I love that, you know, what we've talked about and what she's actually said and says a lot is we arrive in this world, in this universe, to actually work through this shit that doesn't come easy to us. So, and that's a gift. These are all gifts that we have, the things that we've been able to work through and heal from, or like my postpartum depression. And it's like, that was a gift for me, an opportunity to now work with moms and families to give them, just to let them know that with ease, that it's so temporary and it doesn't make that's not you. It's just what's going on with your body in the moment. And so giving yourself an opportunity to say, it's because I felt like that was it for the rest of my life. I was going to have this baby and I'm going to be depressed all the time, because you just sort of get into this world. But again, I think that because of those experiences, I have a gift to share with other people, because I've changed it. I've changed that paradigm in my mind and my heart, knowing that I can share this with people if they want to listen, whoever wants to listen to that time period in your life. Like I wouldn't change it, and you can't change it because it already happened. But to gain insight and perspective from that. So, but yes, I hear what you're saying. Like I wouldn't want to just live in that world and be like, oh, I'm just going to say, well, I was postpartum depression and I'm going to be that for the rest of my life. And my mom did this, my dad did that. No, that's what I'm saying. It's like healing is like forgiving, moving forward, understanding that people know what they know and they do the best they can in the moment of their life. We know whatever it is they know. So just so that makes sense. Like I don't want to blame and point fingers at other people because of my patterns, my behaviors. That does contribute to the behaviors I have now, yes, though I'm aware enough where I'm breaking that, giving way too much power to other people if you allow that behavior, and pointing fingers and blaming. Yeah. I kind of went off in various tangents.
No, I received that fully. I mean, I think what I'll say as it relates to triggers, and the last sentiment you left, is that if you are triggered, you're reacting to the world instead of standing in your own power. Fundamentally. Absolutely. The more you do the work, you should realize that you have no triggers. Nothing can trigger you. Because, again, simply put, you're just being reactive to the world and you're not understanding what's going on. Which is okay, we all work through them, but realize that there's a world where triggers don't exist. And that's what my sentiment was here, right? We have to conceive of a world post-healing. Otherwise, we're going to live in a perpetual world of never being perfect, never being healed, right? Enlightenment, it's like the act of continuing to lead those things away from you, right? It's the process, right? The material world, it's the relationship between time and space, right? That's matter. That's matter. Everything that happens here is a process, and that's what plays out in the patterns. And so the patterns can manifest like snowflakes, but they can manifest like life events, right? And if we keep being reactive, we're not recognizing and learning what the pattern is. We're not evolving and changing the way our process is meant to. And that's where we feel discomfort and disharmony, right? And I think, very simply put, when you figure out exactly who you are, you know what you want, and you're open to change, and you're open to the potentiality of the infinite, quite honestly, you watch things pass you, but you know something much more true than what might be the surface level information that you're encountering. And when you know that, nothing triggers you. You realize that there's this sequence that's playing out in your favor for your evolution and for your process, right? The way you evolve can come to you from books, it can come to you from people, it can come to you from songs, it can come to you from movies, encounters, whatever it is. But you're not limited to that. Your evolution isn't dependent on information. It's not actually a purely intellectual thing. The intellect is actually not wisdom. I don't think that's true. The knowledge is power sentiment, just to be a little contentious with you. I think that's a distraction as well. Because things you can learn are things that have been taught, right? And I think wisdom comes from within. There's a much deeper database out there. We call it the alternative space. You can call it soul, spirit.
Well, there's the power of knowing who you are, I guess, is more the sentiment. But I hear what you're saying, the power of knowledge versus the power of knowing,
And I think,
which is
things
evolve.
we say even evolve, right? Are the way places we stand on the show.
Sure
I mean, it's okay to do. I'd rather do that. But I think, we were talking about the choice, right? So if something comes your way and you decide to say, no, I feel safer doing what the wave is doing what everybody else in society is doing, versus this is new information that can change my trajectory. When you say no to that type of information, I wanted to present a different way of thinking about that, which came to me as we were talking just now, which is, if you have one life, right?
Essentially.
If your soul has one experience that is you where you are right now, which choice sounds like a better journey? Knowing what everything looks like, or opening yourself up to infinite possibilities? Which one? The amount of people who hate themselves blows my mind. And the only reason that is because they have no idea who they are. And it's not something that you can put words to. It's just a being. It's just a presence. It's just removing yourself from everything from everybody else's expectations.
Yes.
A lot of the people I met over the last week, the sad pattern was how much people sold all the achievements, all the resumes to me. I was actually getting sad. Because I was standing in a room and everyone I talked to was selling themselves to me, but they weren't actually telling me anything about themselves. No one actually told me anything or showed me who they were. They told me the criteria for why the world should love them. And that was upsetting, but then, it wasn't gloomy, we got somewhere. It ended up being a good experience, but then the contrast, I remember the next night I went out, and there was we're all sitting in this circle, and we were literally at a round table, right? And everyone had a drink in their hand, and we were let's get to the bottom of life right here sentiment, right? So before going out, we were all talking about different waves of life that we've come into, and it was all opened up because someone was talking about how in America they feel very disconnected. They feel like they need to go move to Europe because here they don't get consistency. Everything's so new, right? So in apartments, everything's so transitory, right? And people are in and out all the time. There's no consistency. You don't know the butcher. You don't know the cheese lady. You don't know the bread man, right? So he was saying he wants to go somewhere to create roots to keep him really connected. And I understand that. Then another man came down. He's like he's a Vietnamese guy, super, like, his style was on point.
Okay.
Like, truly. But he was just talking about how the world needs leaders, right? How the world needs leaders. And he was very passionate about it. He's like, we need people to lead us. I guess those were the two most stand out in the things we were talking about. They were the most vivacious about what they believe the world needs, or America needs, right? We need some roots. And then the other aspect of that is we need leaders to direct us. And the reason I brought that up is because that gives you two completely different examples, but it shows you that the base level question is the most simple. Because if you ask this man who says the world needs roots versus America's super transitory.
Transient, right, not consistent.
Well, you ask that same man, like, what is home? What is a home? And they haven't thought it through. They just know something's wrong. Then you ask the other, what is a leader?
That's right.
Right? And they don't necessarily know. They quote Simon Sinek, right? And it's not to... I really enjoyed their company. They were great people. But they don't know what a leader is. They just know the world needs them.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Right?
Did you
And
ask
so...
them?
Yeah, of course. And so... And it's not anything wrong, but I think fundamentally, if we don't know who we are, how are we supposed to know how the world works or what happens, right? So we owe it to ourselves to, like, take a step outside of everything. Take a step outside of, like, what people tell us the world's all about. Take a step outside of all the books and thinking our lives depend on it. Taking a step outside of all of our friends and family, because they have expectations of us that are so confusing. They're so confusing. That should be baseline. That should be the starting point. Like, let's not fill our cup immediately with the next thing that might cure us, the next thing that might solve the problem. Like, let's just be empty for a second.
You're right about the pause, but I love the interaction you had with them, because you were allowing them to still feel and think the way what they were saying isn't actually wrong, nothing wrong with it, and I appreciate that they were in a sense problem solving. Like, we need something, like, there's something missing, and it might feel, for them it feels like the roots, which I totally respect that. It's I mean, tradition. It's like tradition, and also, and then the perspective of leader, and then define what those words mean for you. Or I do believe in some sort of like a mentorship, leadership, but leaders are a follower as well. And if if you need someone to run something, as long as that leader does know who they are and knows what they want, it's okay to lead when you are doing it for the right reasons, and you're doing it in a way that's actually, I think, guiding people and helping people. So I sort of picture a leader as somebody who can mentor and guide, but also be a follower. And if you listening to other people's ideas, that's a collaboration of sorts. So that would have been an interesting conversation to be a part of, and then to ask them, what does a leader need? So who is a leader, and why do we need one? The why is always a great question. And similar to the sentiment to the other person that was talking, and I still think it's thought provoking, and I like that.
But it also says something about what this is all about, right? It's like, it's a dance between knowing and not knowing, right? It's a dance between letting yourself be open and then letting yourself arrive. It's interesting.
It's your inflection point perspective. That moment of, like, that's where you pause and you stop and you reflect, and it's being in the middle and listening to all perspectives. When leaving Hong Kong was such a time for me. I became a little bit rebellious and crazy before I left Hong Kong, and I was just like, I'm going to do everything I want to do before I leave. I'd already felt like I did so much when I was there. Don't get me wrong, but I was like, I'm going to live it up. But part of when I got here, I knew I had to reconnect to myself, and I know I've shared this with you before, and I was like, literally asked myself, and I said it out loud. At least I was asking myself the questions. Now that you say that. I literally was like, what the fuck am I doing here? What am I going to do here? What's my purpose?
Yeah.
I need my connections. I knew it.
Yeah.
And I had tears in my eyes. I was like, it was such a pivotal moment for me where I was like, I know this is temporary. I'm asking myself the questions. And what's so important is I know what I need from me. So, and myself and...
I hear you. This is the pattern, right? So it's obey, 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 then non-conform as fuck, right? and let loose.
Yeah.
But it's a recentering. It's the same imprisonment as being a strict parent. The kid rebels later in life when he realizes that wasn't his ultimate truth. But then he realizes he's imprisoned by his rebellion. Right, because he's just doing the opposite instead of doing what is true to them. 100%. So we have to hold both polarities and find our center. Right, we have to hold both polarities and find our center, and that's in everything.
Oh, I did. Don't you worry.
No, for sure, and that's again part of the pattern. That's part of the process, and it's okay. But once that information hits your field, you have to make the conscious decision that the way you are, the way you behave belongs to you. It's not antithesis of, it's not conformity to. The people who really do individuate, no one's ever seen anything like it. And when there's something that crosses your field that you've never seen anything like, there's this flamingo that you just can't help but want to dance with. So
maybe you were touching on this earlier, and it's something I said when I was describing our podcast to somebody the other day. I said, because of we have our perspectives and our experiences and our moments, and we bring it to the table, our round table that we're literally sitting at. Open to each other's perspectives, we're open to learning. That's what it is. Like even with the podcast, to learn about not only who you are, but the information that we're learning and sharing. But I said, we still come back to this core.
Fusion. Right? And that fusion is what our creative power, right? This is what the Gospels are begging to tell you, right? People say it's very patriarchal, and it became that because people took things very literally. But when we go back to the universal laws that we're talking about when it comes to gender, it exists on every plane, right? It exists on every plane. So there is the man and the woman, but there also is your creative power, your conscious, your subconscious, right? So when things are coming together, new things are created. That's just the universal law. And we think it has to be only good. We think it has to be only positive, only negative. But what gives a battery energy? It's a current.
Yeah.
It's a current, right? And there's a positive and a negative, right? And so as we have a conversation, there are moments where you're popping off, but I go negative. And when I'm popping off and you go negative, right? And that's how we're creating a fusion. And it's not about the specific moments when you're positive or negative, or I'm positive or negative. It's about when we take a step back and then we close the conversation and we look at the conversation. It has its own energetic form, right? The resonance it leaves with people after they listen to the experience. That's what people take away from it. That's what our form is. That's what our fusion is.
Yeah, it makes you realize, this is my this is a part of my purpose. This is part of what I do want to put out there in the universe, and this is the craft and why you're here.
It's to be a reflection of truth, of love, and I hope that everyone feels that way equally with everyone. Right? I hope it's not just about me, but I hope more and more people can be a reflection of truth.
The work is make it fun. That's the fun part.
Yeah, like when it's all done, right? What are the times when we're not thinking, right? What are the times when it doesn't matter what's true, right? Where we don't need to like intellectualize the world. And I do think it can be that simple. To your point, I think it could be as simple as the moments that are undeniable, right? When we're laughing so hard that we can't stop. When we're loving, we don't have to philosophize, right? It just is. And it's only positive or negative, good or bad, when we put a judgment on it. Yeah. Within that, when you realize that, then you see yourself in other people. And when you start to see yourself in other people, you just want them to know that you're all the same. Yeah. It's all you. Because you're helping yourself. Yes. And, we talk about competition all the time. It's like, you're only hurting yourself. You're only competing against yourself. The best thing you can do is become one. Become one. And the journey's gonna look different for everybody. The way that's experienced is gonna be different for everybody. But no one can do it for you.
Remove the competition, because then what are you competing for and against? Yeah. And you get that accolade, and then you're like, now what? Yeah. Well, then that's not inward. That's that external validation or feeling or item that you receive.
How much would it suck if you woke up every morning and your foot and your hand were just beating the shit out of each other? It's like, yes. It hurts either way. There's no victory.
Or when you're in a competitive friendship or competitive, marriage, or, it's just, you're just one-upping everybody. You're one-upping constantly. You were talking about something earlier, like that level of like, I would judge myself constantly at a younger age. And one of my struggles of being an expat was seeing how many people's families would come visit or their friends would come visit. And for a while, like, it was really hard. People wouldn't, my sister and my brother would come, but I really wanted like my family to be there, even though my parents are divorced. I really wanted other friends to visit me, because I was validating myself through how many people wanted to come visit me. And if people wanted to come see me, they loved me. And then I felt loved. When I would come back to America, I wanted everyone in this world to just like stop. And I wanted to be invited places. And I was like, okay, if people invited me to their house, or people invited me to come stay or go on vacation with them, like all these things, I found validation in that. And then over time, the longer I was away, the less that was happening. Things weren't stopping as I wanted them to stop. And I was like, well, wait, but I'm coming over to see you. I'm getting on a 16-hour flight. Aren't I important? I was really hard. And then for me, it was hard. I struggled with that. I was like, but if I'm popular with people, if I'm popular in their lives, and they're putting things on hold and they're making me a priority, I'm loved. I'm accepted. They won't forget about me. I'll be remembered. So I struggled with that for, I would say, a few years. And I felt so lonely when, even coming back here and seeing family, I was like, I feel so alone. Like, no one really gives a fuck that I'm here, or they don't, or not here. I was like, yes, that was my own internal battle, but I also realized these people are not my people. Like, the people who didn't choose to make time and make me a priority. Everyone has busy lives, I get it. But then I realized, actually, I don't really want to spend time with these people. Like, that was like, I went through many revelations. But I still felt, there was this sense of like, I felt lonely going back to Hong Kong, because I was like, people weren't coming to see me, my friends don't, again, validation through external stuff. And there's so much you can add to that. And I know, like, some people now that I'm back, they're like, I wish I'd gotten over there. I really wanted to come see you. It was just too expensive. So I'm kind of hearing whatever it is they were going through in their lives and why they didn't make it over there. But I am like on the other side of that now, or whatever you want to call it. But for me, it's like, I know I was going through such self-doubt, self-criticism, I don't know, I was lost. It was just like this sense of like lost and not belonging to who I am and who I was. And seeking validation outside of a place that didn't exist. And so I can't pinpoint the revelations of all of that, but really it was more the self-discovery of, oh, actually I'd rather be by myself, or I'd rather be doing these things with my children without having to like think I'm popular because these people invited me to there and then I was invited to that.
Sometimes we project our inner world onto everybody else, but there's always another story, right? So it's not feasible for a lot of people to do cross-world country, quote unquote, right? Sometimes it can be challenging because it's a multiple week thing. They have to make room in their life for it. So I think that's one revelation, right, that is coming through you. Another one is we are evolving because of the distance and new environments and just the nature of who we are. And sometimes we think that who we are is where we were and who we were around and what they thought of us. And the discord there would be putting your self-worth on the memory of who you were. And it sounds like you recognize that that didn't matter. And it's not so much the people, it's more so the paradigm that you had of like who actually was in the States. And so you had this epiphany of understanding that where you are is where you are.
That's right.
It, instead of it being any of these things that compose the archetype of Ashley, right? And whether those are your people or not, right? It's knowing that home is you, home is inside. You do the difficult thing of it taking a journey and it being individual. You're losing the security of the world that you once had. And this goes back to the last quote we left in our previous episode, which is how much of us are really willing to surrender to this evolution instead of it being the memory, because the memory is what holds us up in our heads. And the way our minds work, the memory of who we are is our entire existence, right? If you were to wake up tomorrow and forget everything, are you willing to do that? But that in and of itself will tell you your worth, because I can start everything again from today, right? I can start everything again from today, and that unbounds you to fear. That makes you free, because there's no expectations of the world and who you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to show up. You're acting from the essence of your being from that point on. And so the ego death that everybody talks about, right? The ego death is equally, the connotation of in relationships, I have this ego, but there's the ego which is really looking for you think it's looking for your best interest because it's protecting the shell of who you are. But when you can remove that, right, that's when you're really free. There's no umbrella protecting you from the rain because you need water. You need water, and you start to taste that water and you realize that it's always been safe. There's nothing to hide from, there's nothing to fear. And that's such a great thing to bring up, because we took this journey in the conversation of talking about what travel does for us. And I think it's not about travel or staying put, it's about this whole experience. And then when we look back at it and realize what charge the fusion gave us, right? And all of that needed to happen in order for you to be where you are right now. The home of being in the place that you finally cease trying to escape. And when you do that and you're there, then everything you look at is also there. Everything else becomes home. The world becomes home, and everyone's in their home. We're all home. We're all home, but we just have to realize it. It's you can take that love metaphor and apply it to everything, right? We're out chasing what we are, right?
I definitely felt like I was in a chase for a long time.
Yeah.
And it felt uncomfortable. It felt I wasn't home. I wasn't at home in my body at all. I was, and of course there was other circumstances going on, just having young children and moving to another country, moving again, and not feeling those roots and those connections. But I realized so beautifully that I was like, wait, I can create the world I want to create. That was one of the epiphanies I had in Hong Kong, especially when I started hosting Thanksgiving. I mean, this is an ongoing joke, but it was like Ashley's Thanksgiving was, you needed to get on a waiting list in order to come because only a certain amount of people could fit, right, in the apartment. But there was that essence of like, I was building my community, I was building my family.
Yeah.
And because I was feeling more at home. I'm like, well, I'm creating this experience and I want all of these people to experience it with me. That for me is home. So it's just those kind of, and it's the people that you want to be around and put that energy into.
Well, and I know you to be that person, right? And think about the act of you building that in Hong Kong. I would imagine that every single person who was going through the why are people visiting me now have a place to go.
Yeah.
Right? So you've taken that feeling and you've transmuted it, you've transformed it into something that you can give back to the world and give people that release. And that's what all the things that look like happenstance or look like tribulations, that is the trauma. That's, there's a really romantic way to, let life take you on this journey, which is for sure part of it. We're supposed to experience that. But the reason patterns help us is because we can contextualize where we are in the pattern, right? I'm not going to use the metaphor, I just want to say, that from an outside perspective, that it's clear that that you've transformed those feelings into something that gives to others. And so if you haven't recognized that, it's worth recognizing that. And more feelings like that might come up, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And those are opportunities to do that again. Because, and then when those negative feelings might welcome you, whatever they are, you'll know the pattern that these are new opportunities to give to people who might not have that awareness. And then you start to smile at things when they might seem negative because you realize that that's the pattern, that this is an opportunity for you to give back. Because that's what we do.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
To share, it's not like, I think at one point I never would have shared something like that. I'd been like, no, that's too embarrassing. I don't want people to see that. They Ashley's strong, Ashley's this, Ashley's that, bullshit.
But this is strength.
This is strength.
If your best moments are being the caretaker and you feel that in your heart, then you're denying that of somebody. We just ended the last sentiment with strength is in the vulnerability. And that's because people realize that empowers people because they don't think they have to be a perfect person in order to get to who Ashley is as this provider, as this community builder, right? It's actually saying there's an element of humanity in here, right? If Superman wasn't Clark Kent, then we wouldn't resonate with the story. He would just be some god that came to Earth, and it's nothing attainable for a young kid to look at, right? You need to be Clark Kent. There needs to be an element of humanity in everybody, or else everyone knows deep down that it's bullshit.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's absolute bullshit if you're not a human. We all come here and we make mistakes, right? But we work those out, and we work those out with people. You can only experience love if you show the wholeness of your being. And when you do that, you realize that there was nothing to fear. There was nothing to fear because people will just recognize that it's exactly the same as who they are, right? We have the equal vulnerabilities. And the more you do it, the more unapologetic it is. When I first started making art, I wouldn't tell anybody. When I first started writing things, I wouldn't tell anybody. And I knew deep down that I had something to say, and I felt that discomfort, that dis-ease inside of me. And the things that we hold back are weighing on us. And if we do that, then we can't help anybody, right? We can't help anybody. Strength is in your vulnerability was the sentiment that you just left. And I'm totally with you. I am totally with you. And if you can overcome that, that gives people hope. You give people direction. So counterintuitively, they know to go to you for something specifically because Ashley's overcome that, which is a beautiful thing because that gives you purpose for going through the trials and tribulations. And then when you realize that, you look back at the pattern again, you say, everything that comes my way, everything that happens to me is an opportunity for me to give back a gift back to the world. And that's what all your work is for, right? Like you're developing deeply rooted connections that we can support each other, so we can all ascend together. And so that's the individual thing. Like it might feel like altruism, but it's just ego. It's just ego saying I'm the most important person in the world, and I'm the only one capable of helping uplift everybody. Don't think you're so damn important. This is what I would say to myself, right? Yeah. This is because this exact motion happened to me, this exact thing. And so I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to myself. It's like, don't think you're so fucking important that the world depends on you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
we are all one. We are all one. We are all one. And over-importance on the self is the biggest distraction, right? I talk about how you need to go inward, and when you do that, you realize all the shadows.
Yes.
Right? When you do that, it's not saying it's all about you. It's saying I know the whole quality of who I am, and I'm completely willing to share that, because for someone it's going to give a service, for someone it's going to do justice, or someone has done that. So the shit that they've been carrying around, that they've overcome, finally becomes purpose for them. Finally, because they're able to give that to you, and they're able to let go of it. So you being vulnerable actually uplifts people. It helps people, and it's a mutual growth. And again, there's another life where you are going through what they went through, and you would want that opportunity to give back.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Yes. And a person came to mind as well, and Michelle, I guess, yeah, you know her. I got a message from her. She knew I was going through some things, and then she just texted me and she said, I see you. And I lost my shit. I was like, tears, everything was coming out, and that's like, she does. But I'm okay with her seeing me. I'm okay with anybody seeing me, but she's so attuned to me, and I'm attuned to her. But that was exactly what you just said, is she's like, but I want to give back to you what you give to me, so allow me to, because I can, and I will, and I want to. So I'm here, and I see you. Fuck, I was like, and you did that to me last week. Not did it to me, but you did it for me, and I was like, and I said to you, I think I probably said this to Michelle. I was like, I can't hide from him, because not only because of our exchange and our connection and what we do every day, we do once a week in this exchange, like, why am I hiding? I'm hiding myself, like I'm staying in the shadows.
And when you do, you realize that all you were doing there was judging yourself.
Yes, I was definitely judging.
You were judging yourself. And once you go out and let that shadow have the light of day, you become free.
Oh.
You become free.
It was enlightening.
We fundamentally need to stop judging ourselves, stop judging the world, right? Figure out who we are, be ourselves, because there's nothing to hide, and there's nothing to judge, and there's nothing to be afraid of.
Absolutely. The universe is like, Ashley, you need this person. It's okay. Like, that's their gift for you. Yeah. You have these gifts that you share. Allow them to share. Exactly. If I'm not allowing you to share your gift with me, I'm taking away from you.
And then you're not lashed on to the conception of yourself that you were trying to uphold, because you realize the more you are acting authentically, the more it comes to you. So there's nothing to protect.
I need to not only stay within the integrity of who I am and what I truly believe and what I say to others.
Practice what you preach.
Yeah, practice what you preach. I was just going to say that. You have to practice what you preach.
The more we realize that we can transform the things that happen to us and give them back to the world, the more that we are impenetrable by any negative event that is to occur, because it's inevitable that more shit will come up. More of these feelings will come up in life, but you realize that each one of these are things that you can give back to the world as a gift. Don't deny the people of the gift, and don't deny yourself of the gift.
Schwab.